Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
It started on a Tuesday morning, the kind that feels off from the second your feet hit the floor, overcast skies, weak coffee, and that kind of silence in the house that makes you wonder if something's about to go wrong. I'd barely been in the office 20 minutes before the calendar ping hit. HR meeting. Immediate. Conference room B. No subject, no context. No invitees listed but me. Now, I'd been in this game a long damn time. 22 years in logistics, 5 of those at Alder and Wright. People came and went, managers rotated like they were on a damn merry-go-round, but I stayed because I did the work and kept my mouth shut when I needed to. I wasn't flashy, but I was solid. And in this line of work, solid used to mean something. I walked down the hallway like I was headed to my own execution, and it turns out I wasn't wrong. Sitting in that cheap, cold-ass conference room were 2 HR reps I barely knew by name and some kid manager from operations I'd never even spoken to. The vibe was off the rails awkward from the jump. Nobody made eye contact. Not until they dropped the hammer. Alex, the older HR woman, started, like she was breaking up with me over brunch. We've received multiple complaints from your team regarding unprofessional conduct, aggressive tone in meetings, and an overall toxic environment you may have contributed to. I actually laughed. Out loud. It just came out, like a reflex, like when you touch a hot stove and jerk your hand back before your brain catches up. Because it sounded insane. Aggressive tone? Toxic environment? I've been the guy who buys donuts for the team and takes over someone's shift when their kid gets sick. I don't yell, I don't bark orders, and if anything, I've probably been too damn soft with people. They didn't fire me right then. Oh no, they let me speak, let me try to defend myself. I asked for examples. Specifics. Anything. But all they had were vague lines like the overall sentiment has been deteriorating and we need to make space for healthier dynamics. It was HR poetry, pretty, vague, and absolutely useless. Then came the real kicker. I asked who filed the complaints. Who started the chain? The older HR rep glanced at the kid manager, and he cleared his throat like he had a bone stuck in it. We're not at liberty to disclose that, but rest assured, the feedback has been reviewed by leadership. Bullshit. Pure, steaming corporate bullshit. Somebody wanted me gone, and the rest of them just wanted to keep their hands clean. I packed my things in 2 boxes. That's all it took to erase 5 years. 2 boxes. One for files, one for the family pictures, and the little cactus plant Rachel gave me for my birthday 3 years ago. Funny now. Back then, she was crashing on my couch, unemployed, freshly dumped, and 2 months behind on her student loans. I'd taken her in like a stray, helped her prep for interviews, even used some of my goodwill with HR to push her resume higher up the pile. And when she got the job, she cried in my office like she'd just won the damn lottery. So, when I stepped out of that cold, gray building with those 2 boxes in my hands, who was standing right outside the revolving doors? Rachel. Arms crossed. New blazer. Hair pulled back like she was the queen of something. She smiled. Not a kind smile. Not a sorry this happened smile. It was the kind of smile people wear at funerals when they're secretly glad the bastard's finally dead. You okay? She asked, but it was performative, like she wanted an audience. I'll figure it out, I said, too stunned to be angry yet. She tilted her head, like a curious cat. Now we'll see how you handle real life. I don't remember what I said in return, maybe nothing. Maybe just walked past her and swallowed everything I wanted to scream. But that phrase, that smug, polished little phrase stuck in my head like a splinter in my brain. Real life. As if she'd earned anything without me. That night, after tossing my 2 sad boxes in the trunk and picking up cheap Chinese takeout I barely touched, I sat at my kitchen table trying to process the past 10 hours. My inbox access had already been cut off. My company laptop was locked out. But my phone, my personal phone, still had voicemail syncing. Probably a glitch in their system. That's when I saw it. A missed call from Rachel around 4:30, right after I'd been fired. No message left. But then, under that, another one, an actual voicemail. I hesitated before playing it. Honestly, I thought maybe she'd called to apologize. Maybe, despite the weird vibe, she was just nervous and didn't know how to act. She's family, after all. Or was. I hit play. Her voice came through instantly, but it wasn't directed at me. She hadn't meant to leave a message at all. God, I can't believe that actually worked, she said, laughing. He bought it. They all did. I told you he's too soft, doesn't fight back. You just gotta spin the whole toxic leadership thing and HR eats it up. Now I can take over the accounts without him hovering around like some outdated lifeguard. Then she laughed again. That laugh, I'll never forget it. Light, careless, cold. The voicemail ended with a faint clatter, like she'd thrown her phone into her purse. I listened to it again. Then again. And that's when everything snapped into place. The complaints. The HR meeting. The smirk. It wasn't some vague office politics. It was a goddamn setup. And she wasn't even smart enough to hang up the phone. It's strange how 1 minute of sound can shift everything you thought you knew about a person. A single, accidental recording that flips the entire damn table over and leaves you staring at the mess like you just walked into someone else's house. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after that first listen, the cold glow from the microwave clock the only light in the room, trying to piece together what the hell just happened. My Chinese food was still untouched, already gone lukewarm and starting to sweat through the carton. I had no appetite anyway. The voicemail was short, just under 5 minutes, but it may as well have been a punch to the gut. Funny, right? How something that small can carry the weight of a sledgehammer. I played it a second time, more carefully now, rewinding and pausing like I was dissecting a confession on a crime show. But this wasn't TV. This wasn't fiction. This was Rachel's real voice, her real words, and she hadn't meant for me to hear any of it. She wasn't alone in the message. I could hear another voice in the background, probably her work buddy Stephanie, the one who always wore oversized glasses and nodded along with everything Rachel said, like she was auditioning to be a damn bobblehead. Rachel was laughing, that sharp, unkind laugh that used to come out when she was 3 drinks deep and feeling invincible, and the first thing she said still burned in my ears. I finally got rid of the dead weight. Dead weight. That was me. I was the dead weight. Then came the rest, her walking, maybe pacing around an office, the click of her heels echoing like a metronome of betrayal. It was easy, she said, casual as hell, like she was recapping how she returned a pair of shoes. Just a few nudges here and there. You start asking the team those little questions, you know? Like, do you feel heard in meetings? Or does Alex ever shut down your ideas? Then you let the seed grow. HR's desperate to look proactive these days. They'll latch onto anything. Stephanie said something muffled, probably agreeing, and then Rachel kept going, said she even filled out a few anonymous surveys herself, just to tip the scales. I didn't lie, she added, as if that made it better. I just amplified. Then came the kicker, the line that hit harder than all the rest. He's too soft to do anything anyway. That one settled into my chest like a brick in wet cement. Too soft. I used to think being soft meant being decent, being understanding, being the guy who listens instead of explodes. I used to be proud of that. But now it felt like a weakness she'd sniffed out and used like a weapon. She'd counted on it, banked on it, built her plan around it. I sat there for hours, replaying that voicemail over and over. I thought about calling her, demanding answers, screaming at her through the phone like some madman. But I didn't, because what was the point? She'd already won. I was already out. What would yelling do except give her more to laugh about? Instead, I started packing up my home office. Not in some dramatic, cleansing sort of way, just the practical act of clearing space, clearing my head, trying to feel like I had some control over something. My company laptop had already bricked itself, locked out like I was some criminal. My inbox was gone. My calendar wiped. Just like that, 5 years evaporated like mist on a windshield. I wrapped up cords, stacked books, pulled down the stupid little plaques they give you for Team Player of the Month like those meant anything now. It felt like I was packing someone else's life. I thought about deleting the voicemail, just wiping it, removing the evidence, and walking away. Moving on. Being the better man. But that phrase echoed again in my head. He's too soft to do anything anyway. And I'll tell you the truth, maybe that's what finally did it. Not the betrayal. Not the setup. Not the firing. It was the smug certainty in her voice when she said I wouldn't do a damn thing. So I didn't delete it. I forwarded it to myself from my voicemail inbox to my private email, then saved it again to an encrypted folder, then again to a cloud drive. Just in case. Not because I had a plan. Not yet. But because I wanted it preserved. Like a crime scene photo. Like proof that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined all of this. And here's the messed up part. I almost didn't. Even after everything, even after being humiliated and discarded like garbage, there was still this little voice in the back of my head whispering, let it go. Be the bigger person. Don't sink to her level. But bigger people don't win. They just bleed slower. So I sat there in the dark, the only light now from the laptop screen as I double-checked the file had sent, and I made myself a quiet promise. I wouldn't start a war. I wouldn't go looking for revenge. But if the opportunity ever came, if the moment ever landed in my lap, wrapped in a red ribbon, begging to be used, I would not ignore it. Because she made one crucial mistake in all her clever little scheming. She forgot to hang up. It took 2 months of sleepless nights and strained conversations, job applications sent into the void, and interviews that felt more like interrogations than opportunities. But eventually I found another place to land, a smaller firm in a neighboring city. Not flashy but solid, and more importantly, free from ghosts and knives in the back. The title wasn't as impressive, but the pay was a touch better, and the people, at least on the surface, didn't seem to be sizing each other up like gladiators in cheap suits. I kept my head down during the onboarding, smiled when appropriate, and when they handed me my new laptop, I felt a weird kind of relief wash over me, like I'd been given a second chance at something I hadn't even realized I wanted back. The new office was quieter, fewer personalities with power complexes, more substance, less theater. My manager was a woman named Dana, about my age, sharp as hell and refreshingly blunt, the kind of person who didn't need to raise her voice to command a room. She valued execution over ego, and that suited me just fine. I wasn't looking to climb anymore. I just wanted to work, get paid, and not be constantly looking over my shoulder. Still, even with the new routine, the voicemail never left my mind entirely. I kept it saved in 3 places, one local, one cloud, and one on a USB drive I kept in my desk drawer wrapped in a pair of socks, like it was nuclear launch data. Most nights I didn't think about Rachel at all. But then there were the others, the ones where her voice would sneak into my head, that smug tone saying he's too soft to do anything anyway, like a dare frozen in time. It wasn't until a networking event, one of those watered-down professional mixers with plastic wine cups and dry shrimp cocktail, that the ghost of that voicemail came back to life. I was halfway through pretending to care about someone's pitch deck when a familiar voice cut through the noise. I turned, and there he was, Mark Leland from the Alder and Wright Analytics team, the same guy who used to play chess on his lunch break and once asked me to cover for him during jury duty. "Alex," he said, doing a quick double take before stepping in for a handshake. "Man, I wasn't expecting to see you here. Heard about what happened. Crazy story." I gave him a polite smile and tried to steer the conversation away, but he didn't take the hint. "Didn't know Rachel had it in her," he said, raising his eyebrows like it was a compliment. "Some folks said she pulled it off like a damn pro." That's the moment it clicked. It wasn't just internal politics. It wasn't some HR misunderstanding. It had been orchestrated, calculated, and celebrated. Rachel didn't just burn a bridge, she toasted marshmallows over the ashes and handed out s'mores. I got home that night with a numb sort of focus, poured myself a whiskey, then played the voicemail again. Not because I needed to, I knew every damn word by now, but because hearing it again, with Mark's voice still ringing in my ears, cemented what I already suspected. This was sabotage. Premeditated. Proudly executed. And nobody had ever questioned it because she made it look like a clean kill. I stared at the laptop screen for what felt like hours, the voicemail file open in one tab, my blank email client in another. I didn't rush. I didn't rage. I just sat there, sipping, thinking, weighing the cost. And then I started typing. I didn't write some manifesto. I didn't throw accusations or scream for justice. I kept it simple, too simple, maybe. Just a few lines. Enough to rattle the cage without smashing the glass. To whom it may concern, I recently came across a voicemail that may be relevant to internal matters at Alder and Wright. Thought you might want this for your records. Regards, a former employee. I attached the voicemail. No name. No return address. I sent it from a burner email created 5 minutes earlier, routed through a VPN just for good measure. Then I closed the laptop, took another sip of whiskey, and sat back. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like a hero. I just felt clean. Like I'd put something back where it belonged. Like I'd finally responded to that smirking little dare she left buried in her words. The next morning, the reply came faster than I expected. Less than 8 hours later. The subject line was short and clinical, but it sent a jolt up my spine all the same. We'd like to speak with you immediately. No, dear sir. No pleasantries. Just a sentence that buzzed with a kind of electricity I hadn't felt in months. I didn't reply, not yet. I wanted to think it through, control the timing. But in that moment, I knew two things with absolute certainty. First, that voicemail had hit like a grenade. And second, Rachel's kingdom, the one she thought she built brick by brick with charm and manipulation, was about to catch fire. The Zoom call was scheduled for a Friday morning, which already made me suspicious because corporate types tend to avoid heavy conversations at the end of the week unless something's on fire or about to explode. I'd barely sipped half my coffee when the meeting invite popped up, nothing dramatic in the subject line, just follow up like we were about to casually review budget spreadsheets or touch base about Q4 projections. The sender was Donna Kraus, head of HR, a woman I'd spoken to maybe twice in 5 years, and both times it was about something harmless like updating emergency contact info or signing a holiday card. When the video call connected, she was already there, staring into the camera with this tight-lipped, no-nonsense expression that immediately told me two things. One, she'd listened to the voicemail more than once, and two, she wasn't pissed at me. That second part mattered more than I expected, because even though I'd sent it anonymously, they'd clearly figured out who had the most reason to share it. Not that I tried too hard to hide my tracks, burner email or not, there were fingerprints all over that file, and I'd stopped caring about covering them the moment I hit send. Alex, Donna said, her voice calm but cold, like someone who'd been holding back a dam for a while and was deciding whether or not to let it burst. Thank you for making us aware of the situation. We've reviewed the contents of the voicemail you submitted extensively. I kept my face neutral, shoulders relaxed, the picture of detached professionalism. I wasn't looking to cause trouble, I said, letting the lie roll out of my mouth with practiced ease. I just thought you should know. For the sake of the company, you know. She nodded slowly, still studying me. We're taking it very seriously. Now that could have meant anything. It could have meant an internal note filed away for legal reasons or a full-blown investigation. But judging by the tension in her jaw and the slight twitch in her temple, I figured it leaned toward the latter. HR people don't get worked up over nothing. They only look like that when something radioactive just landed on their desk. She didn't ask me for anything else. No sworn statements. No written testimony. She just ended the call with a short thank you and a promise to follow proper procedure. That was fine by me. I didn't want to be involved any further than I already was. The truth was out now. Let them choke on it. I started the new job the following Monday. It was a clean little office with a window view and a door that actually locked, which already put it ahead of my last setup. The desk still had the plastic wrap on the keyboard and a sealed welcome packet from HR, a fresh start in a place where nobody knew or cared what had happened before. I unpacked my things slowly, savoring the process for once, arranging the few personal items I kept, a photo of my sister's kids, a cheap fountain pen my dad gave me, a coffee mug with a chipped rim I'd had since my 20s. Somewhere between plugging in my second monitor and syncing my new email account, I opened LinkedIn out of habit, mostly to update my employment status and send a couple of connection requests. That's when I saw it. Rachel's profile had changed. Where it once said Senior Project Lead at Alder and Wright, it now read something far more hollow, open to new opportunities. No proud job title. No farewell post. No, I'm excited for what's next optimism. Just a stripped-down profile and a profile picture that looked a little older than I remembered. Something about the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore made me sit back in my chair and just stare for a while. And then came the message. It was from Jason, one of the guys from finance who used to sneak out for beers with me when nobody was watching. He'd always been good at keeping an ear to the ground without making it look like he was eavesdropping. Dude, she's gone. Fired. No severance. No reference. Holy shit. No punctuation after that. Just raw surprise and maybe a little fear, like he'd just seen someone dragged off stage mid-performance. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. Part of me felt this quiet, cold satisfaction, not joy exactly, but a sense of cosmic balance being restored. Another part of me, the softer part she'd counted on, felt a weird pang of guilt, like I'd stepped on a landmine someone else had laid, and now I was standing there covered in the debris. But that faded quickly. Because she'd chosen this. She'd crafted every part of her betrayal like a campaign, careful, strategic, smugly executed. And she never thought for 1 second that it might all come back to her. The message sat there on my screen as I finished setting up my desk. The last thing I pulled from the box was the USB drive, the one with the voicemail still saved on it, even though I didn't need it anymore. I looked at it for a second, then tucked it into my drawer, not quite ready to let it go. I was about to close everything up and head to the break room when my phone buzzed. A message. From Rachel. 3 words. We need to talk. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen, the noise of the office around me fading into the background. She didn't say why. Didn't apologize. Didn't ask. Just demanded, like she still had any power left to claim. And suddenly, I wanted to know what she thought she had left to say. The diner she picked was one of those chain places that pretends to be vintage, with red leather booths and checkered floors and laminated menus that haven't been updated since 2003. I got there early, because of course I did, and took a booth in the back where the light was bad and the waitress didn't care how long I sat nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. The whole place smelled faintly like burnt toast and freezer bacon, and honestly, it felt like the right kind of setting for a conversation like this, not sentimental, not dramatic, just worn down and quiet, like something past its prime. When Rachel walked in, she was easy to spot, even though she tried to dress like she hadn't just been through hell. She still had the blazer, though it didn't quite sit on her shoulders the same way anymore, and her makeup was too sharp, like she was trying to paint confidence over the cracks. She didn't smile when she saw me. She didn't wave. She just slid into the booth across from me and dropped her purse on the vinyl with a thud that said she wasn't here to catch up. "You ruined my life," she said, skipping any kind of greeting, her voice low but sharp. Over one voicemail. Seriously? I took a sip of coffee, let her words hang in the air a moment. I wasn't in a rush. I wanted her to feel the silence, to stew in it just a little before I answered. "I didn't ruin your life," I said finally, voice steady, calm like I was reading a weather report. "You did that yourself." "I just hit play." She scoffed, shook her head, leaned back in the booth like she couldn't believe I was actually sticking to that line. It was a private conversation, she snapped, louder now. I was venting. Everyone vents. You think people haven't talked shit about you before? Oh, I'm sure they have, I said, still not raising my voice. Difference is, most people don't organize a smear campaign and call it strategy. She leaned in, eyes narrowed, her voice dropping back to a hiss. You don't know what it's like being a woman in that office, she said. I had to fight for everything. You? You just coasted on your nice guy charm while I clawed my way up. There it was, the shift from anger to justification, the twist of the narrative she'd probably been practicing in the mirror. I could see the panic behind her eyes now, the desperation to make this about something bigger than what it really was. You're not the first person who's ever had to work hard, I said, still quiet. You think I didn't earn what I had? You think helping people, mentoring, keeping the damn team afloat while you were learning the ropes, you think that was just coasting? She didn't answer that. She picked up her water glass, but didn't drink, just turned it in her hand like she needed something to do while her brain scrambled for a new tactic. I didn't think they'd fire me, she said finally, the edge in her voice softening for the first time. I thought I'd get a warning, maybe a slap on the wrist. I never expected them to cut me loose. I leaned forward, elbows on the table now, meeting her eyes dead on. You played a game, I said. You set fire to someone else's career and stood there watching it burn with a smile. You don't get to act shocked when the flames reach your feet. She stared at me, and for a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, there'd be an apology, some real remorse. Not because I needed it, but because it might mean she'd actually learned something. But instead, her lip curled just slightly. You always thought you were better than me, she said, bitter. Even now. Sitting there with your smug little moral high ground. I shrugged, because I'd stopped caring whether she thought I was better. Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't. But I'd never faked kindness. I'd never played family for a fool. I'd never twisted loyalty into leverage. I didn't do it for revenge, I said. I sent the voicemail because someone had to know the truth. That's all. And that was true, partly. But only partly. Because deep down, in a place I don't like to admit exists, I'd enjoyed it. Watching the downfall. Knowing she felt that free fall, that panic, that confusion I'd felt the day she smirked and said, now we'll see how you handle real life. I'd handled it, all right. Just not in the way she expected. She didn't say much after that. We sat there for a few minutes, both of us staring at our drinks like there was something worth seeing in the reflections. Then she stood, adjusted her blazer like she could still control the impression she left behind, and said, "This isn't over." I didn't answer. I just watched her walk out the door, head held high but steps just a little too fast, like someone running from a ghost they didn't want to admit they saw. When I got home, I tossed my coat on the chair, opened my laptop, and went to check emails like I always did after meetings. And there it was, a new message, subject line short and familiar. You're not the only one she burned. Want to talk? I stared at it for a while, the cursor hovering over the reply button, that old, cold weight settling in again, not dread, not satisfaction, but something in between. Because it turns out Rachel hadn't just betrayed me. She'd left a trail of wreckage behind her, more than even I'd guessed. And people were starting to crawl out of it now, blinking against the light, angry and ready to talk. I closed the laptop slowly, fingers tapping the table, mind racing with possibilities I hadn't even considered before. And somewhere, deep in my desk drawer, the voicemail still sat, untouched, unedited, unchanged. Turns out, Rachel made a lot more enemies than just me. And I still have the voicemail.